Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our session today, Staying Productive Online. My name is Pindile Wakwamavundla. With me today is my colleague Uzo Dumombulawa, who will be assisting with questions and comments in the chat box. So please feel free to ask questions, write your comments using the chat box. As I mentioned, our topic for today is staying productive online. So let's now look at the agenda for today. And this means by the end of today's presentation, these are some of the things that we would have learned by the time we are done. Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to start now with our agenda for the day, which is so our objective for this session today, which is our agenda of today, is firstly to set up your remote office. So we are going to look at Okay, I'm so sorry about the disruption. I heard that you guys couldn't hear me earlier, so I'm going to start again and introduce myself and our topic for today, which is staying productive online. My name is Pindile Wakwamavundla, and with me today is Zodumo Mbulawa, my colleague who will be assisting with questions and comments in the chat box. So please feel free to ask questions, write your comments using the chat box so that we can see if you have any questions or if you have any comments. As I mentioned, our topic for today is staying productive online. And now we are going to have a look at our agenda of the day. And this means these are the topics that we are going to cover and that we would and the things that we would have learned by the end of this session. So our agenda for today is we are going to learn how to set up your remote office. And we are going to look at building a productive work environment and also to manage and maintain your well-being. Before we start, I just want to know, how has COVID-19 impacted your role at work or your general life? Because we all know that from last year when the pandemic started, our lives were distracted and we all had to make some changes in our lives. So let me hear from you. Please use the chat box and tell me, how has COVID-19 impacted your role? For me personally, because I'm so used to waking up every day and going to the office, it was a struggle to stay at home and work from home. I couldn't see my colleagues. I couldn't do everything that I was used to. So for me, that's how it impacted my life. I wasn't sure how to go about starting working from home. So it was a struggle for me. So let me hear how did it affect you? The COVID-19, how did it affect your role? So please use the chat box to respond to the question. While I'm waiting for your responses, I'm going to start with our first topic, which is setting up your remote office. Um, Firstly, let's look at what is remote working. What do we mean when we're saying you are now working remotely, not in the office? And that's what it basically means. It is a working style that allows professionals to work outside of a traditional office environment. So it means you can work anywhere where you feel you are productive. It doesn't have to be just the office that we are used to. It means you can work from home, you can work from other spaces, even if you are not in the office. So that's what we mean when we're talking about remote working. So where can you work remotely? Which places can you use to work remotely? I'm going to just mention a few examples of where you can work remotely. You can work from home. And that doesn't mean that working from home means set up your office in a corner and have a clustered corner where everything, all your files and your workspace, you can just, when you're working from home, you can just set up a nice space in your house where you feel you will be productive and you can work there. You can also go to a coffee shop, especially now that there is some of the restrictions for COVID-19 have been eased. It means you can now go out, go work at a coffee shop, especially if you want to get in contact with other people and not feel lonely. Or if you feel working from home is not making you productive enough. So you can work from the coffee shop or you can work at a library. Working in a library, though, because we all know that libraries need for you to be quiet. So when you're going to work at a library, it means maybe you're not taking calls that day because you can't be talking loudly on your phone while you are at the library, while other people are looking for came to the library because they wanted a quiet space to work. So if you're going to choose maybe a library, you need to make sure that you are not making any phone calls. And the library will provide you with free Wi-Fi. Most libraries have free Wi-Fi, which means you can save on data. And they have a lot of free tables, so you won't have a problem with the place to sit to set up your workspace, your workspace and continue with your work. You can even work at another space, maybe rent a space in a friend's office or wherever. It's all about choosing the right place for you to work in, maybe a place where you feel you will be productive and your work will be covered. So, yeah, I just also want to check with you, what do you think you need to be able to work remotely? We know what the offices have. So the offices have a lot of have desks, they have chairs, they have everything we need. We just get to the office and we find everything that we need. So if you were going to work remotely, what is it that you think you need to have for you to work productive remotely? So use the chat box, guys, and just tell me, what do you think you need in order for you to be able to work productively remotely? Okay, while I'm waiting for your responses, I'm going to move on and mention some of the important things that you need to when you are going to set up and work remotely. First, you need a dedicated workplace or workspace. If you're working from home, you can set up your desk and your chair in a nice corner, maybe in your lounge where you know that this is my productive space. Maybe if you need light, you set up such a way that some light is coming in from outside, and you that is where you, if you want that type of setup. So the first and important thing is to dedicate a workspace. You need to know, and everyone in the house will know that, okay, that room during working hours is Pindile's working space. You need to have that, and you need devices. this is the technology you will need to do your work. So, for example, you will need a laptop if you are working on, or if you are a person who works online, maybe, or you type your documents and spreadsheets. So you will need a laptop for that. You need a phone if you are taking calls during your work, or you're making calls and you want to communicate with your clients or your workmates. If you call each other every now and then, so you will need a phone as well. So dedicate a workspace at home, have the devices that you need, and then you need internet. The work that we do these days is very collaborative. You may rely on internet connection to send and receive files, work on your live files online, and communicate with your team. You need to send emails, you need to, obviously, if your documents are online, so you definitely need a stable internet connection. So make sure that you have that as well, to prepare yourself for this new normal that you're starting working remotely. So what do we mean when we say create your own workspace, your own workspace at home? We mean avoid working in a bed or a couch if you want to be productive, especially now that it's winter. You don't want to be cooped in a couch and with your hot water bottle and you're feeling too comfortable, you might fall asleep. So it is important maybe to avoid your bed and your couch while you are working. It is still important to sit comfortable. So, but you mustn't be so comfortable that you fall asleep while you are trying to work. So you need to set up a table and a chair, a comfortable chair and a table in a nice place in your home where you will be productive, you'll be comfortable, and then you also need to make sure that the space is okay. So I've said you need to make sure that the space you're sitting in is still comfortable, and consider your posture. So consider sitting nicely, because if you're not comfortable, you're still not going to be productive, because you will keep moving and trying to find a nice place to sit. So it's better if you just set up your space and be comfortable where you're going to be working. So what is the physical equipment you might need when you're working? We've said that you'll need your phone to make phone calls or to answer phone calls, to communicate with your teammates, or to chat using chat even if you're not making phone calls. You need a computer because you'll be working on your multiple documents. Maybe you might have conferences to attend virtually, or you need to make video calls. Most laptops come with webcams, so you need a laptop so that your video call if you want to have video conferences. So a computer is very beneficial for that. And you also need a notebook for you to jot down some thoughts that you have, maybe write your to-do list. It is very productive for you to, when you're going to start work, you write your to-do list, you jot down your ideas. So for some people, they still need their physical notebooks for them to do all of that. So if you are that person who writes things down like me, you do need your notebook handy for you to start your work. So for your equipment, you need your phone, computer, and notebooks. Maybe there could be more that you need depending on the type of work that you're doing. You also need to get yourself stable power. That is very difficult in our times now in South Africa with load shedding that is happening every time. So because you still need to work, whether there is load shedding or not. So you need to make sure that you have stable power to charge your devices. That is your laptop, your phone, and whatever it is that you're using. So you might consider getting a generator or purchasing an inverter, depending really on your setup at home, or consider moving from home if you know your lockdown Sorry, not lockdown. So if you know when you will have no electricity in the house, then you can move to a cafe or go to a library on that day when you know you won't have electricity, or if you don't have backup. So it is important to have um, a stable power to charge your devices. It is also very important to find sufficient internet connectivity. So you need to make sure that your internet service provider, depending on where you live, you need to check which service provider you need to use, which one is more stable at your home or at the space where you're working. So you need to be able to check that beforehand and know that your connectivity is reliable. If not, then working remotely really will be a problem for you, because usually we need internet connectivity for work, any type of work. We all really need a stable connectivity. So make sure that your internet service provider is reliable. You can depend on it. So choose the right place where you plug in your Wi-Fi and all those things. Make sure that everything is stable, and you check your internet speed as well. So I know that most of us have experienced they have already had this experience of working remotely because of lockdown mostly. So I want to know from you if there were any challenges, and what do you think are challenges? It's either you've already had to face those challenges, or you just, when you think about working remotely, you think of these challenges and you they are already a discouragement for you to work from home. So earlier on, I asked, what is it that you need when you are going to work remotely? And Elias Makwakwa just responded and said, we need stable internet, which is true. We've already mentioned that as we are working online most of the time, and we need internet to send emails and do everything. Usually these days our work depend mostly on the internet connectivity, so it is important. So now let's look at the challenges of working remotely, because working remotely, like everything else, it has its pros and cons. So there are always bad things about change, especially, and about doing anything. So I'm going to mention a few that we thought of, like loneliness. When you're working from home, you experience a lot of loneliness, especially if you live alone. Even if you live with people, because you isolate yourself during your working hours, so you might be lonely. If you are used to office chats, you might find working from home lonely. But as time goes on, you get used to all those challenges and you are able to face them. So loneliness is one of the challenges that we face when we're working from home. Self-discipline. When you're working from home, there are a lot of distractions that you can face. So don't convince yourself that you'll just watch one YouTube video during your working hours, and you think that won't do any harm. Just because maybe you are alone, you can get away with anything. You can go watch TV, you can open a YouTube video and say, no, I'll just watch this 5 minutes video. You need to be disciplined. You need to know when it's time for work. You dedicate your time, you control yourself, and you start working. Because if you maybe watch one show on TV, the next thing you know, you spend hours on it without even noticing, and you find that by the end of the day, you haven't covered much of your work. So it is very important that you discipline yourself. I'm so sorry about that. I just need to charge my laptop. Another challenge that you might face is that you might not have some of the employee benefits that you used to get when you were going to the office. For example, some businesses are paying you for transport to come to work. or any other benefits that you get by going to the office. And if you're now working remotely, most businesses will then cut some of the benefits that you were getting. Maybe you were getting a lunch every day from work. So if you're working from home or you're working remotely, you're no longer coming to the office, then your company will cut some of those benefits that are not needed when you're working from home. For some people, those that can be a disadvantage as well. And you find that when you're working from home, it is very difficult to switch off. When you're working in an office, you most likely to know when to knock off. You know that I get to the office at 5, at 8 in the morning, and I knock off at 5. And it's not always the case when you work remotely. When working remotely, the line between work and home are really not very clear, because you are already at home. You might sit in that desk until it's dark outside and you're not even looking at the time. So if you're working from the dining room, maybe you might not find it easy to engage, to just disengage from your work. You might just continue working because you see that everything is fine in the house, and you find it very difficult to switch off. And then also you might even experience some form of fear of missing out in some of the things that are happening in the office. So it gets very frustrating not knowing what's happening around you. You might find that people at the office are busy, they have some gossip that you can hear, or maybe there are some news that you needed to hear, and you'll be the last one to find out because you were not in the office, you were working remotely. So you miss out on certain things. So those are the challenges that you might face when you're working remotely. Like I said, with challenges, there are always also benefits of working from home. I can think of a few and I will mention them. But if you know of any challenges, or if you're thinking of any benefits as well for remote working, please feel free to use our chat box and let me know what do you think are the benefits of working from home. So the benefits I'm going to mention some of the few benefits that you can experience when you are working from home. Um, Flexibility for one. If you're working from home, you set up your time in such a way that it will suit you or it will be beneficial for you. You can decide that you're waking up in the morning, maybe you're taking your children to school, then you come back and start working at 9, and then you take a break maybe at 3 to collect your kids from school, then you come back and you continue with your work. Or you can even, you will be able also to be flexible in such that you can sort of fit in some activities while you are working from home. You can order groceries, for example, and have them delivered, which means there'll be someone at home to accept the delivery or whatever delivery that you might have. You might maybe, while you're working, wait for a repair service if you have something to be repaired at home, which means you don't have to wait for a weekend. You can just call a plumber, for example. While the plumber is busy, you are busy working as well. Whereas when you have to go to the office every day, a plumber will wait to come on the weekend when there's someone at home. So working from home gives you some flexibility. You can even cover one or two house chores while you're taking a break. So it is flexible. You just have to be disciplined and decide on the time that you're going to use. No communicating is also can also be an advantage. Communicating takes time out of your day, and that time will never. I mean, commuting, that time will never get back. Getting from home to work can be a struggle. So commuting is also a benefit for working from home. You just have to wake up, prepare yourself, and sit down. In a few minutes, you are sitting down, you're starting working again. Whereas if you commute to work, we all know how long it takes to get to to get to work from home. There's traffic, there are accidents on the way, and it's maybe even far from your home. So that is a lot of time that you'll never get back. So when you commute, you use a lot of time. Whereas when you're working from home, you can just wake up and prepare yourself. Few minutes, you're sitting down, you're starting with your work, and your day is already looking bright and nice. There were no problems on your way to work. And you get to spend more time with family, even if you don't get to sit down with them the whole day and chat. But it's still nice that you are at home. You can chat to them every 1 or 2 minutes while you're taking a break. And it's nice to just, even when you're just looking around, then you see your children or your or whoever you're staying with. So you get to spend more time with family, which doesn't happen when you have to go to the office, because the day is long for you to travel to work, and when you come back you are very tired from traveling. And there are also less distractions. As long as you know that you must stay away from TV, you you can, there are less distractions. There's no one coming to your desk to chat to you, because that's what we do sometimes in the office. We just go chat to our colleagues in the desk, distracting them from their work. You just need to really concentrate on your work and not allow distractions. And there are not so many distractions when you are just working from home. So some of more benefits from for working remotely, it reduces overhead costs, meaning if as a company you decide to work remotely, you don't have to pay rent, for example, for a building, for an office space. So you don't have to, you save on utilities and a lot of other resources that we use when we are in the office compared to when we are at home. So you reduce those, you reduce on overhead cost, and there's greater productivity from when you're working from home, because, like I said, there aren't many distractions. And the company, if the company decides to work remotely as well, they get to access a wider pool of talent. The company can hire anyone from anywhere. They don't have to hire, for example, if your office is in Johannesburg, you don't have to rely on the Johannesburg talent only. You can hire anyone from any province to work for you, and that won't cost the company a lot, because then you are working remotely. You hire people in Cape Town, they will work from their homes or wherever, but they still your company will still benefit. So you can hire the best talent while not limiting themselves by geographical restrictions. So it doesn't matter where they are. If the company works remotely, they can just hire anyone. I'm going to pause now. I've been talking for very long, and see if you have any questions on your side. Okay, I take it everything is clear for now, because we have no questions on our chat box. So let's now move on to building a productive work environment. Uh, so the quality of your workspace is vital for productivity. Like we've been saying, it's important that you work in a nice place where you feel that okay, I will be very productive sitting here, maybe in your house, coffee shop, library, or wherever. So you need to put some thorough thoughts on into the workspace. And some tips that I'm going to give you, just some tips of creating a productive workspace. You need to designate an area in your house where we all know that okay, in that space, that is where you will be working. You find yourself a nice chair, and you get your filing system in place. Your house doesn't need to be clustered with a lot of papers. If you're using papers for work, they you shouldn't have all these papers clustered everywhere. You can just set up your workspace and make sure that you have a system that works for you. Have yourself an organized working life while you are at home working there. So it's important for you to create an area of your own to work at. Um, According to research, to some study on the effects of working environment on productivity, workplace distractions are cut by 40% and the areas are increased by 27%. That is if you are working from home, from the office. So if you're working from home, you are minimizing on these distractions and you are increasing productivity. Like I said, the study shows that there's 40% decrease when we are working from home, from the office sometimes. So that is one, also that is one advantage of working remotely. Less distractions, more productivity. So let's hear from you again on how can you minimize the distractions when you are working from home. So I'm going to share some steps to minimize distractions when you are working from home. Uh, Firstly, let others know your work hours. You need to let your family, your friends, your neighbors, and even your co-workers, you need to let them know your working hours. You don't want people to distract you just because they say that you are at home. Then the next thing, the neighbor is knocking and coming to check on you while you are working. So if your favorite neighbor knows that from 9 to 5 you are busy working, it makes it easier for them not to distract you. So they'll give you that time unless there are emergencies. Even your friends, they won't be distracting you because they know that you're working. So it's important for people that are close to you to know your working hours, even if you are working remotely, so that they don't think you are just home and you're not doing anything. And then they start distracting you. You'll get your visitors wanting tea during working hours. But if they know your time, then they won't do that. Do one thing at a time. If you want to work productive, it's important that you do you start one activity or one job and you finish it. And that's when you'll be able to to complete a few things in a day instead of working on a few different things at the same time. Avoid TV and household distractions. When you are at home, there's TV. When you are like me and you love sitting in front of the TV, it will become difficult for you. TV will be a massive distraction for you. So it's important to avoid TV and other household distractions. Just make sure that during your working hours, you know that no TV or any other distractions, and also put away all pets. Lucky for me, I don't have pets and I don't like them. So, but I've seen how people with pets can be distracted because really your cats will just come to you anytime and your dogs will be barking and all that. So you need to make sure that maybe you put them away while you are working so that you avoid distractions. And take regular breaks. You can't work for hours without stretching a little bit. So take coffee breaks, water breaks, just so you stretch and you exercise your mind. Then you can go back to your work. So if you're working in a team, how do you think you are going to improve productivity? Because some of us, we don't work alone. We're working in teams. So it is important to be in touch with your team and make sure that while working remotely, you are still in touch with your team and you are still productive. So how can you improve productivity within teams? Please use the chat box to answer some of the questions or to comment about our topic today. Okay, if we have no questions, I'm going to now move on. We're going to talk about managing your projects now remotely. Um, if you're working with a team, it's important that you still make sure that you are in touch with your team. If you're working on collaborative documents or and you're trying to find out or you're trying to make sure that the deliverables and all the tasks that you're supposed to finish are done, you need to make sure that a you sort out your project management as a team so that you are able to identify problems in your work, or you make sure that you establish logistics for team communications. So project management is important. Uh, so research says 70% of workplace mistakes are due to poor communication. Communication plays a very important role in our daily lives, and for some, good communication comes naturally. But for others, it can be a problem to communicate. So we need to put some measures in place for communication when you're working in a team, but you're working remotely. So it is important that you put some communication measures. Uh, for business success, communicating is very important. So it is important to communicate effectively when working. In general, it doesn't really mean just because you're working remotely now you cut all communication, because communication is important whether there are issues or no issues. So it is important that when you're working as a team, you communicate every now and then so that you know where how your work is going, and you are sure that you are all working towards the same goal. So you need to set some rules to communicate effectively. And you need to be so rules like when you're communicating, make sure that your communication is clear, you communicate clearly. Because we are not together in the same space, you need to be clear about what you want, what you need, or what are your questions and things like that to your team. So your communication needs to be very clear. Think about the type of message and context you will be sending and you are communicating. So make sure that it's clear and the message is the type of message or context that you're sending in is very clear as well. Also, respond promptly. We can have some of the team members sending you communication and then you don't respond. So now we are all waiting for you to respond. So it's important that you keep you make sure that you respond promptly so that we all are moving in the same direction together. And you set a role model and role model the guidelines. When you set some rules, make sure that you also follow them. You don't just expect the team to follow the rules that you are setting when you are not doing so. So it is very important. So we have some of the comments from our chat box. Quintress Sifala says, work in a separate room, finish the task in time, and avoid social media, especially for us who get very distracted by Instagram and Twitter. Quintress is right. A small distraction can turn into an hour or two. 1 minute you're checking your Instagram, and the next you want to comment, you want to check more, and you are busy on Twitter, and the next thing you lose track of time. So it is important that you self-discipline and work in a separate room where there is no distraction, no TV. If you are like me and you love TV, it might be a problem for you. Um, let's move on now to video meetings and calls. These are some of these are some of the examples of how you can communicate with your team. So video meetings and calls enable teams to communicate and collaborate in real time. Um, applications like Teams, Zoom, Skype, and WhatsApp. Those are some of the examples. You can connect remotely with your team, improve level of communication, and boost collaboration. Because if you use video meetings, then it's one way of collaborating and it is very effective. So these are some of the examples of the apps or collaborative methods you can use. You can use Google Meet. You can keep your team connected with enterprise-grade video conferencing. You can build on Google's robust and secure global infrastructure. Meet is included in your G Suite and G Suite for education, so it's easy to use. If as long as you have you're using Google, then Google Meet is very effective and a great way of collaboration. You can use Zoom. Zoom, you can just download on your computer or your phone. When you're using Zoom for the first time, you can request a demo and you can download Zoom for free. So you can host meetings there and it can accommodate up to 100 people at a time. Microsoft Teams as well, it is great for businesses. You can collaborate and communicate with team members across the world. It doesn't matter where you are. Teams is available, I think, everywhere. So it doesn't matter which country or which province you are in. You can use Teams as a business to collaborate. You just have to create teams. So you download the app, you can create teams and channels to organize your department. So if in your office you have different departments, you can use teams to create channels and use the video call and the chats, and you can share and collaborate with Skype. You can also, it's a chat app, it's very effective for chatting, and it also have full screen video. You can send chats, you can invite people to join your meetings on Skype. So how can you run effective meetings? We'll look at these 4 steps of running effective meetings. Obviously, even if you are not working remotely, when you're going to run an effective meeting, we need to have, so you set an agenda, and when the meeting is on, you consider your tone of voice. You need to speak in such a way that everyone who's listening can hear you. You can encourage people to use cameras so that you can see each other. I mean, after a long time of not seeing each other, when you're having a meeting, you can maybe open a video for a few minutes so that you can see each other. It's important also to be on time, because when you set meetings, you set them at a certain time. So it's very important to join on in time for a meeting. So what are some of the video conferencing etiquette? To run an effective meeting virtually, you need to be prepare yourself, be prepared for a meeting. Dress appropriately. We still need to be formal, and we still need to be presentable, even if you are working remotely. So it's important that when you are joining a meeting, you are dressed nicely for people to see. Don't come to a meeting maybe with your pajamas. You must be prepared and ready. Consider the background also, because your background can be distracting for other people. So make sure that your background is set nicely, and you consider your audio. Make sure that everyone can hear you. So to collaborate effectively, you need to make sure that your team is equipped with the right tools. You can't expect your team to answer phone calls when they don't have cell phones, for example. So it is important that you make sure that everyone has cell phones. If you think cell phones are needed, make sure that they have all the equipment that they need. Also, make project management easier. Make sure that you guys have a system to collaborate and to work on your projects. So make sure that there's project management is easier for everyone. Everyone can access documents, and make sure that documents are easy to share and they are accessible. And encourage collaboration within departments. Make sure that all the departments within the organization are able to collaborate, and prioritize company culture. These are some of the tips that we can also share with you for productivity. We've been stressing a lot over communication. So over communicate. It's better that your team is kept in the loop instead of not knowing what is happening. And also be disciplined. Remote working is not a vacation. You are not on leave, you are still on the company time. So make sure that you work and also that you have your tools ready for work. Your computer is charged, everything is there. And find your poster and use it. Use what gets you energized and ready to work when you need it. Any questions? I'm going to check now if we have any questions on the chat box. Sibusiso Mkhize is saying thank you for a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Sibusiso, for joining our session today. We are happy that you are enjoying yourself. Okay, I'm going to now move on if there aren't any more questions. We're moving now to managing and maintaining your well-being. Your lockdown came with a lot of stress, so it was important that while we are at home, we're still managing our well-being because change is not always easy for all of us. So if you're working remotely, it's important that you're still taking care of yourself. I don't know if you guys have any other ideas of how important managing your well-being is. If you have any idea on this, please don't shy away from the chat box. Let us know why you think you need to take care of yourself while working remotely. Okay, so it is important, obviously, to manage your well-being because it impacts your overall health. Um, if you are stressed, it might impact your physical health as well. And if you are not, and if you are well taken care of, this will lead to greater productivity. Because the more you are, if you are you're well, if you are not well enough to work, then obviously you won't be as productive as you need to be. So this is why it is important to take care of your health. Your physical and mental health are very important. It leads to greater productivity, it increases your resilience, it can even boost your morale and levels of happiness. So if you're happy in your life, you are happy everywhere. So it is important that you take care of yourself. So what is it that you can do to make sure that your well-being is well managed? If you have ideas for me, please use the chat box and then we can discuss some more. Okay, I'm sure we do have ideas on how to you can take care of yourself, but I'm gonna move on and share my ideas. One thing you need to do is avoid overworking. Take regular breaks in between your work. You can even set reminders to take break. You can decide that you're going to work for 3 hours, maybe 9 to 12, then at 12 you're taking your tea break, for example. If you feel like that you might overwork yourself, set a reminder on your phone maybe. So that your phone can remind you at 12 that, okay, at 12 o'clock, I'm taking 5 minutes break. Turn off notifications when you are on break. Skype, when your Skype volume is high, it can sort of call you from the kitchen while you're making tea. So make sure that maybe you turn off some notifications while you are on break so that you don't rush back to work immediately. While you're still trying to take a break, then you hear Skype coming through, then you run and just trying to answer that. And schedule an activity like taking a walk, maybe riding a bike or going to the gym at the end of the day. Um, it's very important to take walks or breaks or even go to gym. I myself like going to the gym, so that is how I get to take care of myself, my well-being. I go to gym after work every day. So you can set up those kind of things. When I was working from home, during lockdown, I used to take my nieces and nephews for a walk after each workday just to clear my mind. So I used to do that. So you can just decide maybe what activity you can do just to clear your mind and switch off from working. To help you embrace some culture shift, consider some of the following. Trust your overall performance. It's important that you trust yourself and you trust that you are doing your best, and rethink the concept of work, understand your commitment, and be patient. Change takes time. So it is important that you be patient with yourself as well. Don't be too hard on yourself and think you are not. As long as you know that you are doing everything you can, you are still doing your job the best way you can. Um, we've mentioned exercise as one way of managing your overall performance as a way of managing your overall well-being. So it's one of the examples. You can exercise regularly. View mental health as serious as physical health. Just because you're not feeling pain, it doesn't mean that you are not you don't need to take care of your mental health. So just because there's no pain, there's still something you still need to take care of yourself. Check in with your manager and your team regularly. That way you know that you are still okay, you are still doing what you need to do, and you are still doing it well. Separate your professional and personal lives. Like we said, you need to set up your working schedule, set up time for work so that you know at 5 o'clock I'm switching off. I'm now doing my personal things, and organize in person social meetups. Now that we are allowed to go out and meet with other people, you can go out for tea, meet with people, and don't just stay alone in your house. That is not very healthy. I'm I don't know if we have some questions. Uh, Omashni Naidu is also emphasizing that we need to be aware of a balance between work and personal life. Make sure that you can separate the two, balance it out so that you, your work doesn't suffer and while your personal life as well doesn't suffer. So it is important to balance between work and personal life. Now we're just going to look at what other steps we are taking now that we've began the process of forming an action plan on working remotely. Uh, what is the one thing that you will do or change following this session for today's session? If you are thinking about working remotely or you started but you were not sure of what is it that you are going to do, I'd like to find out from you what is it that you will then now implement first, or are there any other changes that you want to do from what you've learned today? Are there any what is your next step from today? Are there any other changes you're going to do going forward, or you're going to now start working effectively remotely? Um, so you can use the chat box to respond to that and tell us if after today's session, are there any changes that you are thinking about of doing? So these you can find us on social media. So these are our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If there are no questions, um, our this we have come now to an end of our session. So if there are no more questions, thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope you've learned something and that you will try and implement some of the learnings from today. Thank you very much for taking time to join us. Have a lovely afternoon.